Hey there folks, I'm Jasmine, aka Big Stratus here with a Draw With Me video. I am taking inspiration from what I see out of my studio window to create a fun experimental piece with oil pastel on blank Canson paper. I will link the materials below in the description. This is my first time kind of playing around with black Canson paper, so I wanted to try it out. And as we draw, I plan to talk to you about 4 art growth tips most of us have probably heard but needed to be reminded about. So grab a pen, pastel, or paint and some sort of surface to put the medium on, and let's get our art on. The first tip that I want to talk about is to be confident in your art as well as being confident in yourself. Which, this goes without saying, I feel like all of us have heard this before, but I've also heard plenty of people, tell themselves or tell other people, I'm sorry, it's not the best. I'm sorry, I'm not the best at that medium. Or, that didn't turn out the way that I thought it would be. It looks so bad. I'm never showing this to anyone. I suck. And they just completely discount themselves from their own art. It could be whether, you're starting out and you don't necessarily have the skill set that you want, or maybe you've been drawing or visually doing something for a while. We are our own worst critics when it comes to that, regardless. It can get easy to lose your own confidence in creating art. We often go through pitfalls as artists, insulting ourselves, and if our art doesn't look good enough in our eyes, we block paths of creation and ways to move forward with the growth with the projects that we're on. And then we get to a million projects left unfinished and never to be touched again. Trust me, I have like a bunch of these. But we can let our insecurities block us, or recognize them and be accountable to make the change towards releasing them. Sometimes we could make mistakes in our art, or they really aren't the greatest work that we have created. And I know after looking at pieces that I've worked on for a long time, like hours, I get lost in the way that the art looks as a whole and just focus on all the little squiggles I've made or the paint strokes I've put on this piece. Regardless, the best thing that we could do is just be confident that we are just creating something, that we are making something magical out of the talent that we possess. The best thing that we could do in our art journey is to be confident that we are doing these things. Be confident in yourself, be confident in the skills that we have, the work that we're doing, and understand for us to improve on our craft, we have to recognize more than just us being bad. It's more us doing the best that we can, regardless of like what piece it is. Sometimes we aren't doing our best and things are just done to be done. And the beauty of art is that we could go back to it even, and we can be confident that the project's done. The project could be left unfinished for a long time, and we just have the confidence to move forward. Making art is an extension of you, and essentially a way to grow as a person or express, inner feelings, cope with emotions. We all make art for different reasons, and it could be for work, for school, and the art that we make says something about us. If we can be able to harness that energy within ourselves to create something beautiful, we should also see ourselves as beautiful. Confidence, I have to say, is different from being boastful, which is still, key in your art, especially if you're making art to sell. You have to be able to be proud of the pieces that you have and talk through different sellers, whatnot. But it's different than being cocky in a way about your art. Which brings me to my next tip: to be able to accept the discomfort of sharing your work and being able to be open to critique. When we create art, we're being extraordinarily vulnerable. We share pieces that we've spent our effort in making, and getting critique back might be a little embarrassing to hear what others have to say. And imagine just like spending hours on end, or I don't know, some people could like sketch things out pretty fast, but to have like a person say it's ugly, of course we're going to be discouraged and feel defeated. And it's easier said than done to brush off harsh words. But to improve your art, there's more to say and to listen to an actual critique. Thoughts about your art not being aesthetic or exactly how you wanted, not being good, all of these things are embarrassing, very discomforting, but there's more than an insult to a critique. It's a way to learn to figure out where to improve on your art. It's nice to have like a different setting or a different group of people to visualize those lines and strokes that your mind has easily messed around with for hours on end and you can't really see anything. Then it's listening to the actual people, other than those haters, about what makes this piece, quote, ugly or where it could be improved. We could think back visually to elements of art or principles of design when we come to critiquing. Is the composition a little wacky? Like proportions are off. The design of it all is like a little weird, like it's not harmonious with one another. Things are like jutting out. The colors don't match, or maybe you use like a really off like neon lime with something that is muted. Maybe it could work. Maybe it could work. I'm not too sure. We're artists. We can make anything work, more or less. But there's different regulations that create good art, and to be able to understand those improvements could also give your art some growth to it. So in college, I had a professor during group critique that asked us the question, what about the piece makes you want to snap your fingers and change? And I really like this question just because, even with it, like looking in a mirror, there's different things that we want to change about ourselves. But looking at our art also is kind of looking in that mirror and saying, okay, where can these things change? And the fun thing about art is that it could be molded into something different later on and with some extra work. And some things are maybe just add-ons that you could put into the work. Changing the way you perceive your art and understanding it being a continuous skill rather than like an ultimatum, like this is it, will allow you to move forward and help challenge those insecurities and hopefully, again, releasing them. Accepting the discomfort and listening to folks that have something to say about your art other than it just being bad also helps. Again, the whole idea of the whole hater thing. Like, we live in the age of the internet and anyone can create a user, whatever, that is just a troll saying how bad something is, but there's no oomph, There's not really anything more that they're saying. I think as an artist, you should seek out why those things might happen instead of just like letting it be a fact. It's just someone's ideas, and you get to make the decisions between your art and whether or not that's good or bad. And only accepting the praise is blocking you out from those true improvements that you could make. And as artists, it's nice to have that validation. Some people could live without it. I personally like it, especially coming from more than just like my peer circle, to understand that there are more things than just praise you could hear from is very satisfying to me now. And it helps me understand, I could have molded this part of my work this way, or it opens my mind to different ways to see my art that I haven't before. And it's easy to also get caught up in seeing what other people are doing. And that leads me to my third tip for art growth, which is to admire others but stray away from comparing yourself. Over time, I've heard artists talk to different artists, whether it's like to me or to other people. I think I've done this before in the past, but say stuff like, wow, your art's so much better than mine, or man, I could never draw like that. I wish I could draw like that now, you know? I understand in a sense we're complimenting, or it's like a compliment, but they invalidate the self. They invalidate oneself in order to put another person above the worth that we claim. I think in all it's just more of an insult than it is a compliment, because then you put this other person in a position where, oh, I have to accept that you are bad when we're all just learning. I have to encourage more of an open mind when you interact with other artists, rather than comparing to maybe your day 30 to their day 300. Whether you've been in this game or you're starting out, there's just different things that you could do to improve your own art other than comparing where someone else is or how someone else's art looks like compared to yours. We all have our own different style, our own ways of creating, and we gotta find the ways that work for us. There are so many different artists out there and different references that we could choose from, learn from, curate our own things. I personally create a Pinterest board, which I'll include my Pinterest in the description. We live in an age where the internet is at our fingertips, and there's so much media consumption. It's super easy to get lost in someone else's work, or getting lost in trying to find references, trying to do this and that. We've got to change from comparing to learning and taking the pieces that we admire from other people's work, recognize where in our work we'd want to be influenced, and incorporate in our work. And by no means am I saying to completely steal someone else's work. Like, come on, we got to make our own magic. But to understand how maybe their ways of technique, their ways of how their perspective aligns, and maybe the palettes that they choose. There's different pieces that we might like about someone else's work that we could incorporate. I've heard that artists are the best thieves out there, but we've got to also make stuff our own style. And we, as humans in general, learn best as a community, and we can learn from each other rather than trying to battle one another and see who's best or whatever. Like, we all got our own thing going for us. I also have to add, we have to avoid feeling like we have to be in a different spot in art than we are right now. Like, everyone that has all this artistic talent did not just wake up with it. They continue to work on these things, which brings me to my next art growth tip: to trust the process and make the process. Art takes time, and there's no rush into making things you want to make, unless it's like for a gallery or a school assignment and there's some sort of time constraint. Regardless of that, we've got to have that room to expand and thrive. I have a lot of different paintings that I haven't finished because I have started the work, but then I couldn't get over the stages of it looking like crap. I know that I need to continue to work on these pieces. I feel like as artists we have like different things to finish anyways. Making this video right now is giving me that power and that motivation to start it and start back up to actually finish it, because then I'm like a big ol' hypocrite. So that's also sort of the inspiration of this video, because along with trusting with the process, you've got to be accountable for making that process happen. I've wasted so much time thinking about the projects, thinking about references, trying to get everything together, make everything like have that perfect timing to finish this project. And honestly, it's just all this procrastination, avoiding doing the work. And to finish a project means to show up and just do it. Whether it's making that thumbnail sketch or settling on those references, get yourself in the the practice of at least drawing a line or drawing something to get something started, and then finding different ways to continue that process is also a different step. Recently, I used painter's tape to create a T-chart in my bedroom to see what I have to do versus things that I finished. And I write the objectives on sticky notes and I move them from unfinished to finished to get that visual, and it helps me spark that motivation to create it. Personally, I've gone through different methods of trying to finish work, and you just gotta find something that works for you. I can make a video about different projects or different methods that I've used in the past and sort of compile them, so hopefully that'll give you some inspiration. And if I end up making that video, I'll link it in the description. You have to just remind yourself that in order for you to grow, we can't just sit back and consume. We have to take action and create. Thank you so much for your time and listening to these art tips. I would love to see what you folks create during the session and in general, so tag me on Instagram at BigStratus to show off what you made. Comment below any questions or comments about the video and how I could also improve, because obviously I am into the critique. Alrighty folks, I think I am finished with my piece. This is how it looks like. My fun little doodle came out this way, but I think I could work on it a little more. Create great things, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace and love.